Relationship Helpers. This is Laura and Vincent Ketchy. Today's topic is a serious one. We are interviewing Tracy Lamperti, and she specializes in working with families who have experienced sexual abuse, many times by the hands of pedophiles.
Right, this sexual trauma.
And I think that Vincent and I, we're in our 40s. We maybe come from a different time period, but in our time, it wouldn't be unusual to see a child that would be approached by an aunt or an uncle or somebody that the parent knows, and there's this expectation that the child hug Aunt Sally or give Uncle Steve a kiss or whatever.
Right, or it could be somebody at church or something like that.
That's reaching out for the child or whatever.
Right.
All of this in the intention of having good manners. The child is expected to follow through with that, like kiss the aunt or kiss the uncle or hug the aunt or whatever.
So this child is kind of feels forced to do something they really don't feel comfortable doing.
And then the parent forces the child, and that sends the message to the child that, hey, I'm feeling uncomfortable in the situation, but I can't talk about it because I'm supposed to do this because this is manners.
Right, or that, it's manners and I'm being obedient to my parent or to an adult.
Right. And so in light of this situation that we've just described, Tracy goes into depth today about how pedophiles can take advantage of children through different weaknesses in that child's family system and in communication. And so she really narrows it down into really discussing how grooming happens.
Right, so she'll break down some of the methods of grooming for a pedophile and how they, as Laura said, exploit the communication or miscommunication between the parent and child, or especially find these children who are part of a family where they don't feel safe or they don't feel like their parents are available for them to talk about things.
Right, and this is, I realize, is a very serious topic, and we're only covering a certain amount of ground in this particular episode. We're basically focusing on the weaknesses in the system, or weaknesses, I should say, in the family system or the environment. We're going to be looking at the levels of grooming. We're going to look at the secrets that pedophiles can try to keep with children and how they try to bond with kids, and how basically these different levels of grooming, starting with small secrets and things like that, ramp up to things like touching.
Right.
And we're going to look at what parents can do from their end in terms of the questions they can ask the other adults that may be in care of the child.
Right. So we're going to talk a lot about, first of all, understanding and knowing what's going on, being preventive.
Right.
And understand these preventions. If you don't understand it in the first place, there's no way you really can prevent it.
And unfortunately, as counselors, we've seen far too many times where families they've become reactive instead of proactive in these situations. And it's kind of like trying to unring a bell or drink out of a fire hose. It's too little too late.
Right. So hopefully this will help your family to be more proactive in this area. And make sure that you go to the show notes, which are at relationshiphelpers.net. We'll have a link to safety tips or child safety forms there, and more information.
Yeah, in specific, we have a form here that Tracy has specifically created for parents, which has questions that you can ask the people that you've entrusted your child's care to. And we highly recommend that parents get a copy of this at our website, and you can get it off of our show notes.
Right. So, thank you for listening. We really appreciate all the feedback, and we hope you enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to Relationship Helpers. I'm excited to have with me today Tracy Lamperti. She is a licensed counselor in Brewster, Massachusetts. She has been working with families for over 25 years. She has certifications in healthy sexuality, traumatic stress, rape crisis, early childhood development. She's a facilitator of Darkness to Light, which is stewards of children. So, Tracy, thank you for being with us here today.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit more about your background.
You about covered it. A couple of things I'll just clarify is that one, I'm not currently a Darkness to Light facilitator for Stewards of Children, or currently I haven't kept those memberships active. And as we go along talking, I'll tell you why. But generally speaking, it's because the programs are open to the public, and so anyone can actually go online to Darkness to Light and take that training on their own, and they don't need a facilitator. I'm available to people if they need, because oftentimes when people are learning more about the topic and researching about the topic and trying to protect their own families over this topic, they get triggered in sometimes their own issues. And so I'm there to help people with questions and things like that. But so I just wanted to clarify that I don't currently have those certifications active.
Okay.
But yeah, in the late 80s, I started along my career path. And like you said, rape crisis counselor, various certifications, and I've been doing therapy for about 22 years now.
Okay.
With child protective work and then therapy.
So you've worked with a lot of people who have experienced trauma through sex or sexual abuse.
Yeah. Yes, I have.
So you've worked with adults and with children as well?
Right.
So tell us more about your area of expertise working with these types of clients.
I used to do a lot of child therapy and have kind of moved away from that. I always sort of believed that children weren't a diagnosis and children weren't, they're kind of a product of their environment. So now I primarily see couples and families. I do very little child therapy. Because really, when we're working with a child in therapy, we're hoping to change things that if they don't change in the family, they're not really going to change in the child. We're asking children to do like these monumental feats of changing their behaviors, their emotions in a family system that maybe isn't changing. And I don't think that's fair. So, primarily now I focus on working with the couples, with the helping them with the foundation of how to support their family, how to support their children, how to create an environment in the family where children can do things like tell if something's not going well, or tell if they're not feeling well or what their emotions are. Because really, we're in such a busy world these days with so many distractions that think of what it takes. If you have something on your mind and the people around you are busy or preoccupied, have other responsibilities, what's it going to take for you as an adult to approach somebody that loves you and you love and tell them what's on your mind? And so think of what that's like for a child to be able to have something really serious happen, or even mildly serious, or just even upsetting, and find a space to be able to go to the adult. So that's really what I want to help with.
Yeah, so you were working with children, but you found out it was very disheartening as you were helping children. You're asking them to do these very difficult things, and then the environment or the family dynamics were not changing. That was sounded like it was really disheartening to you. Right. And so these children, sometimes you may help them and they may make progress, but it was all for naught if they were, it sounds like, maybe going back to these environments and being re-traumatized or re-hurt, or however you want to say it, getting more soul wounds there.
Right. Well, and even if the abuse isn't happening at home, which, a lot of times it's not, for a child to have the courage to do that and to accomplish that in therapy, like they've actually mastered, like practiced it in therapy, like, Mom, there's something on my mind, Mom, there's something I want to talk to you about, or Dad. And then, it tends to fall right back if the parent isn't coming along with the child. Now, not that you can't work with the parent also in child therapy. Clearly you can. And also not that child therapy isn't useful. It is very useful. But when you look at, what's the statistic? When you look at 70% of health-related issues that go to the clinic or that are treated by doctors are life choice issues. So what percent of the issues that come into the therapy setting are family dynamic issues? So that's really where I want to make a change, is helping the family dynamics to come together in a way that supports children in getting their needs met.
Yeah, so you want to work with the mother and the father or the whole family and have them to make the changes and not rely upon the child to be the instigator of all the changes.
Exactly.
Okay. I know that one thing Laura found, you wrote a very interesting article about disarming the pedophile, where you described a lot about what happened in situations where children are abused. Tell us more about that. Could you tell me about the process of a pedophile, or the process of grooming that maybe a pedophile does?
Sure. Yeah, sure. That's the hallmark expression or term that we use, is grooming. And pedophiles, pedophiles don't want to get caught in lots of different, we call it sanction-seeking behavior in children, like where children are doing things that we need to sanction their behavior, we need to catch them, and so that they can change and get better. And so, a lot of times with drug addiction, we'll hear of the person getting caught and saying something like, "Oh, I just kept doing it because I wanted to get caught." Well, that's so that I could be stopped in this behavior. That's not really the case with a pedophile. The pedophile really doesn't want to get caught. I don't necessarily think the drug addict wants to get caught either. But so if you're doing the wrong thing and you don't want to get caught, you have to really learn the skills to be sneaky, I guess is the word, and to not get caught. And so some of the things that fall under the category of grooming are things like, how the pedophile forms the relationship with the person that is the potential victim, and with the person that's the potential victim with their family even.
So it's very subtle.
It's very subtle, and they move it up the scale. So they might do something that seems very benign, and if they're confronted on it, it's not going to really make a difference in anybody's eyes. Another person might just be like, well, that was kind of strange. But it's not going to get the person sanctioned. It's not going to get the person in trouble. It's not going to get the person accused of anything. And then if everybody passes that test, then they move on to the next level.
So what would maybe one of those be, something like that would be benign but not sanctioned, but it was still kind of off? Or
okay, so one of the things I posted about was secrets. So let's just take, for example, a teacher says to a child or an adult, let's just use, we just recently here in our area in Brewster you can look at it in the probably national news, a teacher that was accused of sexually raping actually 2 students, happened right off the classroom in a side room, like a server room. It's a computer room, and then there was a sort of like a closet where the servers were. And that's where this happened. Like, how could a person think they can get away with that in that environment? That person has done a lot of testing to get to be to the point where they're bold enough, they're going to do it right under the nose of everyone. But let's see, But
you're saying they start these secrets to kind of...
Okay, right. So they might say to what was the example I posted on the Facebook post? They might use an example like, "Oh, when I was a kid your age, I used to dress up as a superhero in the bathroom and put a towel over me like a cape and pretend I was a superhero." But don't tell anybody, because I would be, kind of laughing. I would be so embarrassed if anybody knew that, And so, for one, they're bonding with the child. They're telling the child something that, like, they're making that they're not telling everybody this. So something special about this child. And these kids in this case were like kindergarten to second grade, and so they feel like, oh, I'm the chosen one, I'm the special one he's sharing this or she's sharing this information with. So that's a bonding act. And then you have the bonding of, well, I'm like he is because I do that too. They might pick something that they think, well, children do this, so I'm
they're kind of identifying with them.
Right, identification. So then they've bonded in that way. And then if the child goes home and says, hey, do you know Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so used to do this? The parent's going to be like, oh, that's funny or whatever. Right. And then if it gets back to the adult that the child told, they're not going to take that. Likely, I have to plug in here. Likely that they're not going to choose that child. Again, they're going to move on to a different child.
Right. So they're kind of selecting which child will keep the secret that they can proceed with.
Right. And then they might tell the next level of secret and see if that passes the test. And pretty soon you've got a child who's like, oh, I can't say anything because like he would be embarrassed if I said anything, and he's my friend now. I don't want him to be embarrassed. And then it turns into, oh, he's telling me secrets. I know secrets are wrong. And then in the child's mind, they're thinking, I don't want him to get in trouble. And I'm the keeper of his getting in trouble or not. And so now I can't say anything about that. So secrets are an example. Touching is an example. Say, I'm just taking the classroom example. Say that you have a student and a teacher that are working side by side at a desk or a longer table, and the teacher might, or the adult helper, whoever, might place an object on the other side of the child, and while they're working with the child, very innocently need that pencil they placed over on the other side, reach across, and accidentally brush across the chest of the child. And the child's not going to, maybe some children aren't going to even be fazed by that. And children that are fazed by it are going to just maybe be a little embarrassed for a minute, but they're not going to say, hey, you touched my privacy. Some kids are going to do that. They're never going to be the child that person has chosen to sit next to them. They're already going to know that. And so again, it's a test to see, is the child going to say anything? If the child doesn't say anything, and they might then try another physical strategy, which is a little bit more invasive, and then see if the child tells, and they'll just keep upping it until either they get caught or until they've accomplished to meet their need that is with children that should not be with children. And the same with the parents is that, again, taking the school example, the parents come in and the teacher's really bonding, really saying, I'm going to give your child extra help. They might choose a child who's shy, who's struggling in math, who might need the extra help, and they're really going to connect with that parent and make like, I am your ally, really build a trust with that person.
So they become very charming with the parents as well, and talk them into like they're the rescuer, they're the helper,
right?
And going above and beyond their really duties as a teacher or whatever their position is.
Right. Yeah, I forget which priest abuse case it was, but it's in the Darkness to Light training program, or at least the old one. They've revised it since. I don't know if it's in the new one. But, the victim said, who's an adult now, he said, he came into our house. He prayed with my family. He prayed with us. And they really had he had all of their trust.
Yes.
At the same time as he was abusing the boy.
Yeah, so it was not just sexual abuse, but there was spiritual abuse going on as well.
Yeah.
So what should parents do? What would you advise parents to do to protect their children from these predators, these pedophile predators?
Well, I think it starts with, I don't know if you're going to post any links anywhere to anything.
Yes, we will, most definitely.
Okay, so I've written up a list of questions, and it's kind of like a guide. Say your child is going to camp this summer, or your child is starting a new school, or wherever your child is going to be, that you'll have these questions to be able to ask about the program, like, Have your employees been trained in sexual abuse awareness and prevention? I mean, because the training is not just to protect kids in that environment. The training is for these professionals that are going to be working with your child to be able to recognize abuse too in a child, so that they can report if necessary, or they can look for the right things and ask the right questions. But so those are some of the questions about what kind of training has the staff had. Has everybody in the program been trained, from the janitor to the president of the program or the owner of the program? Because as we've seen in plenty of cases, sometimes it's the custodian, sometimes it's not just the direct care workers. So in terms of what parenting can do in prevention, I would highly recommend that they take a look at those questions. Some parents are going to be very uncomfortable asking these questions, and even more uncomfortable when we collectively as parents are not asking the questions. I would like to see it be that so many adults, so many parents are comfortable asking the questions, that these programs, camps, schools, babysitters, whoever, are ready to answer these questions, and they're not unusual questions. A lot of times programs will think, well, if we take a training like this, people are going to think we have an issue in our program.
Yes.
And so we don't want to put the darkness to light sticker in our window that we've all been trained, because they're going to think we had an issue here. We don't want to have that. That's head in the sand kind of stuff. We want it to be something that we can more easily talk about.
So it's really about the parents asking lots of questions. Questions to the caregivers, where their children are going, and even questions to their own kids, I guess, of what you're saying about their interactions with other adults.
Right, depending on the age of the child. But yeah, I think the questions are key. But then I think also there's like a three-pronged approach in my view. One is the parents asking the right questions, which are actually two prongs maybe, because that falls under parent education.
Okay.
And so under the category, I don't think this comes first actually. I think the other one, but I'll talk about this first. So parent education, I think, is super important, so that we know what to look for when it comes to grooming. We know what to look for when it comes to all these different tactics that are at play in the structure of the programs. Who's one-on-one with who, is all the one-on-one experiences supervised in some way, either through a window. So that's all the education part. And then the other whole half of it is the family dynamics. So we have to ask ourselves, like in any of these big scandalous abuse cases, how did it happen? How did it happen that so many people were abused, or even just a few people, and nobody told? So when you think of health, like where disease occurs, where mold grows, where bad things happen, it happens in the darkness. Where sin happens in the darkness. And where does mental health and abuse happen? It happens in places that are dark, that we don't talk about.
So where there's not openness, where there's not really discussions about what's going on, what's healthy, what's not healthy.
Right, but not even just the hard topics, but the like, how was your day? What we have now is we have families that are not interacting regularly in a healthy way. I have clients who are texting their kids up in their bedroom to ask them a question, or say, come get your dinner, and then kids taking their dinner up. Now, I realize this is far on this end of the spectrum of unhealthy family behavior.
Right, but I think that's really important you talk about that. I talk to my couples about, one of the homework assignments I give them at times is having dinner together. How many times did you have dinner together for that week? And when did you plan it? Everybody was around the table, because you say, yes, dinner is very important. It's a very important time for these talks, for these casual conversations about your day and just your relationships with other people, the things that you do during the day, and your opinions, your values.
Right. We have to kind of assume that most kids are going to feel embarrassed maybe once during a week or once during a month. If our kids don't feel comfortable to share the things that embarrassed them with their family, how are they ever going to tell us, oh, so-and-so offered me a drug, or so-and-so somebody brushed across me and it didn't feel right. And I don't know, what should I do the next time? Or do you think that's weird? If we can't have these open conversations with our kids, that's where the abuse is going to happen.
Right. So it starts with these open conversations about things that aren't heavy topics. It's being able to talk about the things that you like, or just things that you do, what you did with your friends, what you did with grandma and grandpa, or what you did at school during the day. Right.
And I think, another really important component is the lies of omission, lies that seem like innocent lies. We find this, I think, happening a lot in families because couples, people are stressed out, and, so-and-so, mom doesn't want to upset dad right when he comes in the door for work, so let's not tell dad about that right away. Let's tell him later. All of that is really a setup for kids to have to differentiate. When do we have this lie of omission thing? I don't know what the children would think of what they would call that, but when do we not tell and when do we tell?
Right.
If we tell, who's going to get upset? The kids worry about these things.
Right. Yeah. When is it safe? When is it appropriate? When can I do it without being yelled at?
Yeah. Or without even mom and dad getting annoyed with each other or frustrated. Kids are sensitive to that. They don't want there to be conflict in the family.
So, and these questions, so we'll have a link to these questions on our website at relationshiphelpers.net that will link to Tracy these questions. So for all of you that are wanting to look at these questions that you need to ask and kind of have ideas, we'll have a link there on our website. Tracy, tell me about maybe in your years of counseling, when you had kind of an aha or light bulb moment.
Well, in relation to this topic, the aha moment would be when right before I took the Stewards of Training facilitator training. That was in 2011, and I had been certified in rape crisis training and board certified expert in traumatic stress. And I'm treating all these really tough topics, and I guess it was, I don't know why it would have been an aha moment. I didn't have it before, but it was it's way easier to prevent trauma than to treat it. So that's when I endeavored to get myself trained to be able to train other people. So that was my aha moment. It didn't quite unfold the way I'd hoped after that, but that was my aha moment.
You had been dealing with all these difficult cases, have been through this tremendous amount of abuse, and it was just very difficult working with them, and you're like, wow, what if I was able to get them before this happened? What if I was able to help them to feel comfortable opening up?
Right.
So what would you say is your most effective relationship skill?
Yeah, I think it's just taking a breath, turning things off, and, gathering around and just interacting with each other. Just healthy interaction, communication without distractions.
So being very intentional about having full attention with each other, so turning off electric devices.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have, as you can imagine, I've interviewed hundreds of children and asked them, what could we do what could change in your family, or what would you like to do to make your family better? What do you think you could do? And exclusively, almost occasionally I'll get the far end child who will say something like, we could go to Disney. But for the most part, it's things like, well, we could have family game night. We could have family movie night, and these things don't really cost anything,
right?
And that's what the children want. And I think that for whatever reason, I don't know, the parents think they have to do the bells and whistles things, or what. There's just not much downtime. It's always like, we're going to go here, and then we're going to go experience this and this and this, and it's like, let's just experience each other for a while in the backyard around some lemonade and a ball.
Yeah, so these children, what they really want is just to have fun with their family.
Yeah. Without
tension, without pressure to accomplish something.
Right.
Per se. Wow. So what would you say is that you're most excited about today?
In terms of my work, you mean?
Yeah, well, work or whatever, yes.
I'm always, every day, I'm driven and excited about supporting people, and I'm happy to, not happy, that's probably not the right word, but I'm privileged to go to the dark places with people because we can help them out, and you don't have to be a psychotherapist for that. You can just be a loving friend. And so that motivates me every day to help people work toward wellness and wholeness, and not think that they have to rely on their pill that they're taking that day or their counseling session. I mean, all that's maybe has its place, but that we can just, support one another. I just really appreciate that.
Yeah, so just being a genuine person and being safe for people to talk to, or where they feel comfortable, huh?
Right.
Wow. So we're coming down towards the end. So this is kind of our final lap or speed round. What has been your biggest stumbling block in your relationship with God?
Probably time and distractions. I'm guilty of it too. Okay. I have my Facebook scrolling time and all of that, and to keep on reminding myself that is not going to do anything to bring me closer to God. It's not going to do anything to advance God's kingdom. It's just these distractions are not going to do anything good for anyone.
So these electronic distractions mainly is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, electronic could be anything. I mean, pick your poison. It could be like reaching for food or whatever, just reaching for things that aren't God's ways.
Okay.
It's not what He intended for us.
Okay. What is the best advice you ever received?
Oh, the best advice I ever received. Let me think for a second here. The best advice, I don't know, probably slow down. And actually, my husband is my greatest advisor, and I was worried about something last night, and his advice to me was, all this worry that you're having, do you think it might reflect that you don't think God's going to take care of this? And so, yeah, just remembering that prayer is just available to us every second of every day, and that God's watching over, and, He loves me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that God's there. He's ready to comfort if we're ready to go to Him.
Right.
So who do you admire the most other than a biblical figure, and why?
I really admire my husband, not to keep boosting him up, but I guess that's what we're supposed to do, is boost our husbands up. But he's really my rock. He really, he's not in my field at all, which I guess is maybe a good thing. Mm-hmm. But he's good for not having distractions in his life, so he can just be really present a lot. And he's just a really good listener and has really, really good advice. So I really admire him. I really appreciate him.
So he allows you to talk.
Yeah.
And you feel comfortable talking to him. He sees
things that I don't see sometimes just because I can't see them.
Let's see. What is your favorite book other than the Bible, and why?
I missed that question. I have to. Well, I have always got a book going, and usually they're actually right now I'm into the whole building your tribe kind of thing. Okay. So I don't know that that's my favorite book. Actually, my favorite book now, I would have to say there are some children's books that are my favorite books. And I really love the old, like the Aesop's Fables, and I really liked, I think, kind of deep usually, and I like to read things like that. We homeschooled our kids for 10 years, and we had so many great resources with that, and a lot of them were in literature. And so I think there's great literature for kids that adults can benefit from too.
So you like these stories with deeper meanings? Yeah. Well, we're coming down toward the end, so please share with us some parting wisdom and the best way to contact you.
Okay, some parting wisdom would be take your time with things, slow down, take a chance to, look into people's faces, into people's eyes, and say, I had one, I'll just say it quick. My husband, my great husband, he had this great strategy when our son was little. Our son was really into Star Wars, and at any random given moment, he would say to our son, I feel a disruption in the Force. And he wouldn't know. He wouldn't really feel it. And that would be, and occasionally it would be like our son would offer something like, oh yeah, I'm really worried about this or that. And it's like, that was just a great strategy. Sorry, what was the question again?
Well, no, but that's right. So he used that to actually just get your son to talk about his feelings, maybe what was going on in his life.
Right.
So it's a very kind of indirect way of asking your son what's going on.
Yeah, tell us about what's going on inside. What was the question, though? I forgot
the question was, share with us some parting wisdom.
Oh, parting wisdom. Yeah, just be available to people. And again, I just keep saying the distractions is just to try to bust them, because they're only there to, I mean, I don't know if I'm not a big talker about Satan's involved in everything negative, but I think it's a tool of the dark side, of the evil, of all these distractions, and we have to take responsibility for it, take charge of it, and direct our own path.
Yeah, so us being too busy, Satan can really use that against us.
Yeah, yep.
And the best way to contact you?
Oh, the best way to contact me, TracyLamperti.com is probably the best way.
Okay, and so how do you spell that? TracyLamperti.com. I'm also on Facebook. I'm on Facebook on a few different places. Lamperti Counseling and Consultation on Facebook. But my website leads people in all those different directions. There's links to everything on my website. Okay. Well, thank you for being with us today on Relationship Helpers, Tracy.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us today on Relationship Helpers. It is our hope that you gained some valuable information. For the show notes and more information on today's topic, please visit www.relationshiphelpers.net. Again, that is www.relationshiphelpers.net. If you enjoyed our show, please go to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and review. If you had questions or concerns about our show, please let us know about this as well by going to our website, www.relationshiphelpers.net. Thanks again and have a blessed week. Note that accuracy and authority in regards to the subject matter covered today is not a replacement for professional care. Neither the host, the clinicians, or the guests are rendering clinical or other professional advice. Seek professional help if you need it.